Today's video is on angle relationships. I want you to be copying down these different angle relationships into your spiral along with the examples as we go. So if you need to, pause the video. All right, the first one we're going to talk about are straight angles. This is a straight line. Okay, the straight angle measures 180 degrees. Put my degree sign on there. All right, so what this looks like is a straight line. All right, let's say that there's point A right here and point B right here. The measure of this line from point A to point B is 180 degrees. All right, this is important because we use this fact very often whenever we're finding missing angles measures. If we can find a straight line, we know that even if an angle is formed off of this straight line, then we can add those two angles up to equal 180 degrees. Next, we have vertical angles. It's the angles that are opposite from each other when two lines intersect, which means when they cross. These angles are congruent, meaning they have the same measure. So what this is going to look like are two lines that intersect, they cross. Okay, let's name these. Let's go with A, B, C, D, and E. So what this means is that this angle right here and this angle right here, because they are opposite from each other, they are congruent, meaning they have the same measure. This big angle and that big angle also have the same measure. All right, so we call those, and we can do two lines. Call those congruent. They are vertical angles. Next, we have adjacent angles. These are angles that share a common side and a vertex. They are side by side. Again, this comes in handy whenever we're dealing with a straight line with another line coming off of it. So let's go A, B, C, and D. So this angle, ABC right here, is adjacent to ABD. They are not congruent. They don't have the same measure. But we could, if we know one of them, we could find the measure of the other one because they make that 180 degree straight angle. All right, so these two angles that are next to each other, ABC and ABD, the smaller one right here, those are adjacent angles because they are side by side. Now we have complementary angles. These are two angles that add up to 90 degrees. So if you have a 90-degree angle, which is like the corner of a square, and it is most of the time it is marked by a square in the corner. They're not going to write 90 degrees. They're just going to put a square in the corner. So there's my 90-degree angle. If I were to have a line coming out of this, creating two different angles, then this one plus this one would equal 90 degrees. Supplementary angles are two angles that add up to 180 degrees. So they form a straight line. They form this straight angle. So we have this line, one breaking off of it. Let's say that this one is 60 degrees. Because it's supplementary, it adds up to 180. So that means this one over here is 120 degrees. And together they form this straight line, which is 180 degrees. All right, so those are the different types of angles. We're going to do a few more examples with some numbers. So this first one I've said they're supplementary, which means they equal 180 degrees. So angle CBA, this angle right here, is 50 degrees. So the one next to it, angle CBD right here, needs to add with 50 degrees to get 180. So I take 180, I subtract 50, and that tells me that missing angle is 130 degrees. All right, this next pair are complementary angles. So they told us that angle OMN is 35 degrees, and we're looking for angle OML. Well then, if it's complementary, we know that it adds up to 90 degrees. So I'm going to take my 90 degrees and subtract 35 degrees. And it gives me 55 degrees for my missing angle right here. Okay, vertical angles. We know that they are congruent, meaning they are equal. So if angle XYZ is 75, then VYW is also 75 degrees because they're opposite from each other. All right. I'm going to go ahead and keep going on this one. I noticed that this is a straight line right here. So that means XYZ plus XY and V, this angle right here, should add up to 180 degrees. So if I'm gonna take my 180 and subtract 75, and that gives me a measure of 105 degrees for this one next to it. And since we have another vertical angle, right, these two are vertical, opposite from each other, so this one's also 105 degrees. So tomorrow we're going to practice this with some tape and measurements on the desk, and y'all are going to be using these different types of angles to find missing angle measurements.